What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA DFS Early Look. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013, and I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all the social media platforms listed above. We are a premium DFS content provider as well as a DFS community designed to help make you a better DFS player. If you are new to the channel, welcome. You came to the right place. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we do go live. We cover NBA Monday through Friday on the YouTube channel. We cover the NBA slates 7 days a week over at WiseTake.com with articles, projections, cheat sheets. But on YouTube, we cover it Monday through Friday completely free. We try to do 2 shows a day. When I get this early look out, when I have time, I try to do it for everybody because I like interacting with everyone and waiting until 5 o'clock. We like to have a basis, even though news is everything in the NBA. It's good to have a starting point and kind of make sure you have the slate covered. And this way, as you get news, you kind of already have a basis and you can make changes to just the news rather than waiting to the end of the night and just absorbing everything at once. It could be overwhelming, especially for those of you who do have day jobs. It can make it pretty difficult, or obligations, even if it's not a job. Maybe you take care of kids, whatever the case may be. But needless to say, you came to the right place if you found us on YouTube. So subscribe, hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we go live. We do all kinds of free content, not just NBA. Our specialty is the main 3 sports of NFL, NBA, and MLB, but we also do PGA. We also do esports. We have all kinds of free content, so make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications bell. And for the rest of you, you know the drill. I'm going to be asking for those likes. I know. I started the show a little bit early today, earlier than we initially scheduled. I finished some of my early morning obligations early, so I wanted to make sure to get it out the way this way. Like myself, I know I'll be going to the gym after this. I want to give everybody an opportunity to do what they have to do as we continue. So we'll wait for some people to pile in here. Hopefully we get a decent little crowd here. We can get some questions rolling, get some activity going in the chat, and really start brainstorming this slate out. I like the slate initially. Yesterday, if you play FanDuel, you probably got fucked with the Middleton situation. That was just atrocious. It's just, what are you going to do? To not rule him out. And if you play DraftKings, you had the advantage of swapping out. And then you ended up having a huge edge on the field as Middleton was still 50% owned, I guess, for a lot of people that didn't have time to swap him out or didn't get the news. But hopefully you were able to make those moves. I did okay. I should have done a lot better. I think I profited like $70, which really, is nothing to brag about. A profit's a profit at the end of the day. It's better than losing. But would have hoped we'd done a little bit better. I got screwed because I raised my exposure. Once I removed my Middleton, I raised my exposure to Norman Powell, who I liked a lot. He ended up getting hurt right out the gate. So 50% of Norman Powell sucked, but it was still an edge over 50% of the field on Chris Middleton, who I was able to swap out of. So that's how that went. Needless to say, NBA this time of year, it gets a little wild, it gets a little more unpredictable, gets a little more variant, but we're going to do what we do, continue to do dirties, drop sevens. That's we've had a pretty good last few days. I told you last week I had some terrible luck, but starting from the weekend up until here, I've been doing a lot better. So good to see. There's going to be swings. There's going to be swings in this game, and we have to be able to handle those swings. Obviously, we preach mass multi-entry simply because that is the most effective way, not only to get you to first place on one of these crazy top-heavy GPPs, but also to give you guys a chance to win your money back, to win at least some of your money back most nights. If you're building 2 to 3 lineups by hand, we're not saying you can't do that, but if you're building 2 to 3 lineups by hand and you don't cash either team, it's going to be a blow to your bankroll. Obviously, you got to be way more disciplined. If you're doing mass multi-entry, it still leaves you some upside to be able to do some of the other things and really like take shots and live to fight another day and be able to withstand some of those losing weeks where you just got bad luck. And which happens a lot. You'll see in the MLB too. It's all about variance. But in the meantime, let's continue to do what we do. We got some momentum to build on. I feel like we've been on the right stuff, barring some bad luck. But hopefully the bad luck is going to stop at some point, right? What's that expression they say? Tough times don't last, tough people do, right? Cliche, but one of the good ones. And Pat just keeps trying to take my wife's shoes. No shoes. No. Pat just keeps trying to take the shoes. I gave him the no, the nice version of the no, because I'm live with you guys. But boy, better act right. That's right. That's how we do. All right. Anyways, enough about that. I see in the chat, our boy XXZ3LXX says he got screwed with Powell and Brook Lopez. Yeah, man, that was rough. Unpredictable. They kind of announced like late, you had like 15, 20 minutes to make your moves, but they never said that those guys were out. All they said was they're not starting. So definitely threw up a curveball. We did talk on the live stream about how Milwaukee they could afford to lose a little bit, and we did talk about how schedule-wise it was a really tough part in the schedule. We also talked about how Denver had been struggling, and even with those guys missing, Denver did struggle. They barely, I don't even know if did they cover the game? It was rough. It was ugly for them, but fortunately for them, if Middleton and all those guys played, there's a good chance that Denver would have lost that game. So keep an eye on that going forward. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into this. We will jump in. Patches is hanging out with us. He's a little more energized than usual. I tried to get him outside doing some tug of war, some frisbee action, but he's still pumped up. He's ready to rock with this slate because he knows I'm trying to make some money tonight. He knows if I make some money, he gets some treats. So that's how we're doing that. Let's go ahead and jump into this first game. We got the Boston Celtics visiting the Indiana Pacers. We have a 214 total, down from 215. Boston opened up -1.5. They're up to -3 currently. In terms of the schedule, don't forget to check out our free schedule notes article over at WiseTake.com. My boy Jay Irv handles that for us. Pretty much 7 days a week, barring some personal thing come up, a vacation. But he does a free article for us at WiseTake.com where I recommend you guys start your research off with this to get an idea of who's in what place in their schedule. The schedule is extremely important in the NBA. The travel, everything can be grueling. So make sure you check that out free at WiseTake.com. Also, speaking of free, we are going to make the cash game articles, aka the slate breakdowns, on sizable slates. It's a cash game article. On really small slates like last night, it's more of a slate breakdown where our writers go game by game. But we're going to make that article free going forward. So make sure you check it out. It'll be free tonight. Follow us on Twitter if you're not following at @wise_take. That's where all the content kind of posts typically. So make sure you come check it out. Come rock with the nation. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this. We talked about the line already. Boston. So there's some interesting options here. Daniel Tice is not the most attractive generally, but he is going to get minutes, I think somewhere around 27, 28. And they're going to need the bigs on the court. Maybe this is a spot where they play Cantor some. Hard to say. They haven't really wanted to do that. And now Robert Williams is back, which makes it more complicated. But Tice, we know, has been the starter. He's been the guy they feel the most comfortable with, at least it seems. I think Kemba Walker is at a buy low point. He played, after being limited in his first game and sitting out in the back-to-back, he played 31 minutes last time out. So I think he's good to go to get 33 or more. I would assume they're going to gradually increase him, especially being that they are still missing, what's his name? Jaylen Brown. So I do like Kemba Walker today in a bounce-back spot. There's no Brogdon on the other side, so that's a blow to the defense of the Indiana Pacers. A lot of Boston guys looking decent. Gordon Hayward, I don't mind coming off a really good game on FanDuel. His price is really low. We expect him to get a ceiling of minutes with Jaylen Brown out. But even on DraftKings at 7K, I'm fine with that as well. Marcus Smart is all right. The price is up. People are healthy. I typically need people to be out for me to really get excited. And Jason Tatum's price is still elevated. I don't mind Tatum. I think he's great. But when everybody's healthy, it's kind of tough to pay a premium like this, especially on a big slate where there's so many good options. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Again, a lot of guys projecting fairly well for us on both sides from the Boston side, which makes sense. On the Pacers side, we know we have some injuries here. We know Brogdon is still out. Oladipo is questionable. We'll have to see what his status is. Aaron Holiday's been playing big minutes, but his usage has been incredibly low. I'm a little reluctant to go heavy on him. Sabonis, I think, is a fine option. Boston has struggled with bigs. His price is not terrible, especially on FanDuel at 8,500. I think TJ Warren's in the conversation, a guy that was playing big minutes. The minutes have been a little down over the last couple days, but that could change at any given point. Miles Turner has been playing extremely well. His minutes have been more solidified, more concrete. I don't mind him either, although this could be a situation where they elect to go with one of Turner or Sabonis down at the bottom instead of playing them both together. So, again, just things to kind of keep in mind as we roll. But the Boston side as a whole looked a little bit more attractive, though don't forget about Domantas mother-sucking Sabonis. Next up, we got the New York Knicks. We got my New York Knicks. That's right, I'll say it. Not ashamed, but it is what it is. You know, situations will arise. The New York Knicks visiting the Washington Wizards. We have a 228 total here. The Wizards opened up -3.5. They're up to -4.5. Patches is acting wild, acting a fool over here. 228 total. Let's go back to the travel portion on the schedule notes. Both teams have had a day off. However, the Knicks do play tomorrow, so we can keep that in mind. I don't think it matters too much for the Knicks. Not like they're trying to win games anyway these days. But they are being dramatically paced up here against the Wizards, who have always been one of the best teams to target against. The Knicks are all nothing but tournament plays. There's not one cash viable play, in my opinion, that I'd be willing to roll the dice on. I think Elfrid Payton for tournaments makes sense. The minutes have kind of varied, but the usage has been a little more elevated. Mitch Robinson is in a nut matchup here against Washington. I could definitely get behind that. Julius Randle, another one where the minutes are kind of up and down, kind of in flux. But going up against Washington, a team that has struggled against bigs, I think he could represent a matchup issue for Washington. So it's mainly Elf and Randle. I don't mind the idea of Mitch Robinson. However, it is a big slate. There are guys that seem a little bit less risky we could take shots on. But that's pretty much the extent of my interest. I think RJ Barrett would be the next guy in mine, though I typically prefer him when there's an injury. They've been a little more conservative with his minutes in general ever since he started showing some signs of fatigue and showing some signs of like being worn out earlier in the season. But if you remember to start the season, they were playing him like 40 minutes a game. So really, Elf and Randle are my first two here, even including in our projections. And then I think Mitch and RJ would be the secondary options. Not really a ton else I'm interested. I think we could find better elsewhere. If you want to take shots on Bobby Portis, he's played really well. But again, we should have enough value to mess with. On the Washington side, Troy Brown's been playing monster minutes, which has looked good. What the hell would you get that from? He's played some monster minutes. Patrick's just wilding out here. He's freaking out here. He's going back and forth in the living room. He's got toys that I didn't even know were here. He's just finding shit to chew on. He's just doing his dog thing. Troy Brown, like I said, has played big minutes. We were still somewhat conservative with the minutes we projected him for, but based off his DraftKings price, it's just a little too low. So he's looking like a decent value option, especially if Jerome Robinson misses again. We'll have to check his status. He did miss the last game, but one less body is going to be good for him. Looking at Thomas Bryant, he got 24 minutes in his last a couple games ago. Then he fouled out in his last game, so a matchup issue kind of prevented him from playing a ton. But yeah, I think that this is a situation where we could see him play another 24. And on DraftKings, he's way too cheap, so he's still going to be on somewhat of a limit. But if it's 24 minutes in a good matchup against the Knicks, I don't necessarily mind it. Shabazz Napier played 41 minutes against Miami. They kind of needed him to get going as Beal kind of struggled. I don't mind it. The Knicks have been pretty bad against point guards, so I think he's definitely an option. Bradley Beal, one of the studs on the slate, going to be, I think, somewhat low owned because it's the Knicks, and the Knicks are not a good defensive team. They play slow, so the defensive stats don't look as bad as maybe they should, but they are not a good defensive team. A guy like Beal could certainly thrive in this matchup, though we have other studs who project better, other games that project better in general. So not going to go overreact, go too crazy. Davis Bertans has played really well. We'd have to overproject him to really have him show up at these prices, but he's been really efficient, and that's what it's going to take for him to pay off his price. So some okay options. Again, we do have some value to look at with Thomas Bryant and Troy Brown. Here, I'm going to set up for the next game, which is Minnesota and Houston, and then I'll pop in the chat, kind of check on you guys, see if people are starting to pile in. This is one of the marquee games of the night, no doubt. We've got... Boy, you doing work on that thing. I don't even know who that is, man. He's chewing up my niece's toys. She's going to be pissed. Minnesota visiting Houston. We have a 246.5 total. Houston opened up minus 12.5. They are still at minus 12.5, so pretty big spread here. But I think we can do dirties here. Popping in the chat real quick. Christine says, Ayton, Love, Gordon, or Randall for power forward. That's a really good question. We'll talk about them game by game individually. I think you can make a case for all of them. As of right now, I actually think maybe Kevin Love might be my favorite just based off the trends. He's been playing monster minutes, but we'll have to see. Z3L says, I like Randall and Unicorn. Yeah, I think we'll get to Kristaps Porzingis. He's certainly been playing extremely well. Christine says, so Randall over Gordon. We'll have to see. I think Gordon's price is kind of elevated. We'll look at the matchups. I know Randall's in a really good matchup, but I think Gordon's minutes and role are a little bit more solidified. Orlando obviously still trying to win, whereas the Knicks couldn't care less. Christine, last question, says AD or Westbrook. Oh, that's a good one right there. Well, it depends on some injury information, but right now it's hard to go against Westbrook. We'll talk about why in this game here against Minnesota. If you're just joining us, welcome. Make sure you hit the like button, guys. The likes really help us out. They allow us to do the free content. We want to continue to do the free content. I like hanging out with y'all. I like interacting with y'all, showing you guys our projections and kind of coming up with a game plan for the night. So please hit the like button because that's what, again, enables us to continue to do the free content. We are rolling in with Minnesota. So this game is just awesome. We have a massive total, right? 246.5. And on top of that, the Rockets have been terrible. They got beat up pretty bad by Charlotte. The next day, they got destroyed by Orlando. They looked awful. So that makes me very interested in this game because I think Minnesota has a better shot than ever to keep this close just based off those trends. In terms of the schedule, both teams have had a day off. Houston is in the midst of a 4-6 stretch. which is kind of tough. It's not a back-to-back, so that's beneficial to them, and they're at home, but they are still in the mess of a 4-6 stretch. D'Angelo Russell could be a sneaky tournament play today. Projects fine. We did kind of elevate his minutes up, but I think given the fact that they are playing so many guards, this could be a pretty good situation in general for them. So I'm interested in D'Lo. I like Malik Beasley for tournaments. I'm going to have to over-project these guys to make it work. Our projections are based off of pace. So even with this massively high predicted pace, we are still having to do a little work to get these guys in. But I'm going to do that work. I think it's worth it. Malik Beasley, like I said, somebody I'm definitely interested in tournaments. Naz Reid is kind of interesting. One of Naz Reid or James Johnson should do really well against Houston. James Johnson's been playing some backup center while Cat is out. The issue is, Houston has a tendency to force teams small. Everybody assumes, these big guys are going to dominate Houston, but then Houston seems to find a way at times. Not to everyone, but they can find a way, especially if a team is not so attached to their big. They've found ways to kind of force the other team smaller. So I'm not sure that they have the confidence in Naz Reid that they're willing to just leave him out there if he's not fitting the script, which could open up time for James Johnson, who would fit more of a smaller lineup. However, in terms of ceiling, I do think Naz Reid is one of the better players here for ceiling, even at an elevated price tag on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he projects extremely well, even at the 27.5 to 28 minutes we have for him. You got to do some work. Juancho Hernan-Gomez is not going to project well. If you really want to fit him in, you're going to have to over-project him. And his minutes really haven't been as high as I would have hoped. It's mainly D'Lo, Beasley, Naz Reid, or James Johnson, or Naz Reid or James Johnson, but I'm definitely interested in having some game stacks to this game. And it should be fairly popular. I'm curious to see what people do. On the Houston side, Covington, I think, is a phenomenal play. He's played huge minutes in games that matter. This is a revenge spot for him, for whatever that's worth for you guys, but he projects well for us with the elevated minute price tag, with the elevated minutes we have projected for him. I think he does well. Russell Westbrook, looking like a strong pay-up option for us. He's playing big minutes. He's playing better than Harden, and he has been for a little bit now. It doesn't mean I don't like Harden. We have enough value where we can make things work. But I think Westbrook is somebody that I'm willing to have a good amount of exposure to against a Minnesota team that plays terrible defensively and shouldn't really, there should be nothing here stopping Westbrook from getting to the hole. So I'm interested in both Harden and Westbrook. I think in this matchup, in a legit game stack, you could actually play them both. It wouldn't surprise me if Westbrook went for 55 to 60 and Harden went for 60. It just comes down to, are there better plays out there for cheaper that you can get those 50s and 60s from at a cheaper price, allowing you to load up somewhere else. But I am interested in both of them because this is the game of the night. If it stays close, if this game blows out, obviously it is what it is. The positive, though, for Houston is we know that Houston is more than any other team. They've been a lot more willing to play their guys in blowouts. I'm not talking about no 30-point game, but if the game's within 20 points, they've pushed their guys into the fourth quarter regardless. So I'm interested. Keep an eye on Eric Gordon's status. He's been dealing with a knee injury. Even if he plays, there's a good chance he gets pulled early because of his knee. That's just what's been happening. And if that happens, we can look at the new house to pick up more minutes. And I think that would solidify Covington's role as well. So definitely a lot of interest in this game in these big two in Westbrook and Harden and Covington. Really, those three players I think stand out the most to me right now. Moving on, we've got the Dallas Mavericks visiting the San Antonio Spurs. We have a 227.5 total. Dallas opened up -3. They're up to -3.5. Dallas has had a day off, but they are on the front end of a back-to-back, so keep in mind Dallas does play tomorrow. San Antonio's had a day off that they're working with. Starting with the Dallas side, if Dorian Finney-Smith plays, we have another value option on DraftKings at 3,700. Not really in consideration on FanDuel at 45, but 37 for DFS if he does play is a little too cheap. We'd have to grade him out with the rest of our value plays to see how much we get. If you're not interested in Westbrook, Harden, or maybe you're just interested in one of them, Luka would be another guy worth considering going up against the Spurs, who will be without DeJounte Murray. The Spurs have really struggled against guards for the most part. I mean, all season guards, really everyone. They just don't play defense ever since Kawhi Leonard's been gone. You could settle for Porzingis, who's been playing a little bit better. I think recently has been playing more minutes. Luka's dealing with a wrist injury. Luka's actually questionable. Let me get that out of the way. He's actually questionable, so keep an eye on him. First, we know he's playing with an injury to his thumb. Then he was sick. Now he's got some kind of wrist injury he's been dealing with for the last few weeks that's aggravating him. So there's even a possibility he sits, which would really kind of open this game up. It would make Porzingis one of the top plays on the slate. Porzingis is already a pretty good play, especially going up against the Spurs, who are missing two of their centers, their first two centers in line. And even with those first two centers, they've given up more points in the paint than just about any team in the league. So this is a phenomenal spot for Porzingis. The catch here is Porzingis doesn't really rely on points in the paint. He's a shooter. But if he's on, it doesn't really matter. He could do whatever he's got to do. So I do like Porzingis. I'm interested in Luka if he plays. Keep an eye on this game. If those guys both play, I'm not terribly interested in the rest of the pieces. Kleber's been playing a lot of minutes. We know Seth Curry's out, which has led to Hardaway playing a ton of minutes. But I would really prefer to have one of these guys out if I'm really going to seriously take a look at the rest of these pieces. Not that I don't think they're good plays, but I think that it requires some sorting to figure out who's going to do what. And I think we have better options elsewhere unless they become better due to injury. That's kind of where I'm at. Holla. Dirties. On the Spurs side, we know DeJounte Murray's out. That's going to make DeRozan an even stronger play. I'm interested in him against Dallas. He's had success against them this season. As far as point guard goes, Derek White and Patty Mills should both provide some decent value. They should both see increased minutes, being that DeJounte Murray is ruled out. We're also waiting on the status of Lonnie Walker. I wouldn't be surprised if Lonnie Walker got ruled out. He's already missed a game or two. And if that would be the case, I think we can raise Rudy Gay's projection, who's really on the cusp on DraftKings. Rudy Gay already looking like a pretty solid play on FanDuel at 4,300. DraftKings at 5-1. We would want that injury to be able to confidently project Rudy Gay for 30 minutes. Rudy Gay did play over 30 minutes in their last game, so it's not like out of the realm, even though he's been on the shit list for some reason. With that said, we're waiting on the status for Lonnie Walker. Outside of that, I think Trey Lyles is a solid play, just getting a ton of minutes. And we've seen bigs do work against Dallas lately. Bigs have done work. Miles Turner, his big-ass 40-something point game came against Dallas. So I'm interested in Lyles once again. He hasn't always gotten there. He was good to us the first two times in this situation. Hasn't really gotten there since, but he's been close. In his last game, he was close. There was a game before that where his team got destroyed by Brooklyn, where had the game stayed close and he gotten his minutes, he would have eventually gotten there. So I think there's a lot of interesting plays on the Spurs here, starting with the value, Derek White, Patty Mills, working up towards Trey Lyles as they are thin at that position and they're playing a team that is big with Porzingis and Kleber and some of these guys. And then, of course, DeMar DeRozan, man. I think that without Murray, that's like the final hat. He's going to have to play more point guard. He's going to have to facilitate. So, yeah, I think the Spurs are definitely a team worth looking at, especially if they get a little bit thinner with the status of Lonnie Walker up in the air. Something to keep in mind. We'll do one more game, and then I'll pop back in a chat. We got the Orlando Magic visiting the Memphis Grizzlies. We've got a 220 total that's down from 223. Memphis opened up -2. They're up to -2.5. Orlando's had 1 day off. Memphis has actually had 2 days off since their game against Atlanta when they once again trounced them. Starting with the Orlando side, DJ Augustine's minutes have quietly been up with some of the injuries to like Evan Fournier, for instance. Michael Carter-Williams is not far behind him, but DJ Augustine is getting more of that run. Orlando did blow out Houston in their last game. I think that really messed up Terrence Ross. But if this game does stay close, I anticipate Ross getting that 34 minutes that we saw the game previously. Aaron Gordon's price is coming down. It's always a conversation with me between him and Vooch. I always lean towards Vooch, especially because the usage shows us that Vooch, Gordon, and Fultz are the biggest benefactors from the absence of Evan Fournier. So now that Aaron Gordon's price has come down, if you notice, I have Aaron Gordon's minutes projected for 42. I know that's ridiculously high. Number one, he has been playing somewhere around 40 minutes, but number two, it's more to reflect the usage increase. And the same thing with Vooch, to aggressively project him for 36 is more of a reflection on his predicted usage increase with Evan Fournier out. It's not just Evan Fournier. They got guys that were already out. Evan Fournier is just another piece to add to that list, but I'll actually give Vooch a little bit more, since I think I gave Gordon a little too much of a boost relative to Vooch. So I'm just gonna give him a little boost. If you're doing a game stack, which you certainly can, Memphis is gonna push the pace here, then it's fine to play them together. But otherwise, I'd rather pick one. I do like Aaron Gordon's price better. He's the one that against Houston, he's the one that excelled. But I feel a little more comfortable with Vooch in his role. I think his role is legit, regardless. Obviously, the price is a little bit easier on Gordon. Markelle Fultz also worth looking at. On FanDuel, once again, extremely cheap. He also gets a significant usage increase with Evan Fournier off the court. The issue, of course, is minutes. He played really well in a couple games ago, had a cramp injury. And then the next game, he only got 27 minutes. But he did play, so assuming he plays again, this is a spot where point guards have excelled. Maybe not Trae Young. He seems to be the one guy that has a problem with Memphis. But yeah, I'm interested in the Magic as well. And they all have like a median projection. A lot of 5.4s on DraftKings. On FanDuel, they're a little bit better. Their projections look a little better. They're showing up a little better. But that's always the case on FanDuel because the FanDuel pricing is just soft. Memphis was the side that I was having a hard time finding guys that really stood out to me. Orlando does play really slow, so this is a pace down spot for Memphis. Josh Jackson has played really well, though, in limited minutes. You're relying on efficiency. Melton hasn't really gotten there. His projection's starting to equal out. Dillon Brooks is there for defense over anything else. Still kind of up in the air on what to do with him. I think John Morant it's kind of tough to know when he's going to do what he's going to do. So as you can see, everybody's kind of bland. There's not a ton from the Memphis side I'm interested in. I actually had to raise Valanciunas' minutes just to kind of make him pop somewhere above 5x. So there's really not a ton here. I think that there's so many good plays elsewhere. I don't want to force it and force myself to get exposure to a situation or a team that I'm not that interested in when we have so many other teams that are shorthanded and do give us some leverage to work with. So I'm not terribly interested. I'm not saying you can't play guys here. I'm sure somebody here is probably going to do well. I'm saying that it's a pretty big slate with some pretty good options elsewhere. I don't want to force it and play players that I'm not really interested in or don't project well. I have to do something crazy to their projection that makes no sense to make them pop. So I'm good with the Orlando side, not that interested in the Memphis side personally. Of course, if you're doing a game stack, you can certainly bring it back and kind of force it on guys like Joe Val, Morant, Dylan Brooks, and whoever it is that you may want to do. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Arizona Drama says, I like PG-13, Gordon, Drummond, and Harden as my core four. Yeah, man, we'll certainly talk about it. But hold up. Give me 1 second, Nation. Gotta put the dog in his place right quick. He's trying to chew up all my shit. Trying to chew up on my shoes and shit. Hit that like button if you haven't already. I'm doing it with Patches and everything, man. Do it for Patches. My dog, my puppy. Anyway, so yeah, Arizona Drama. PG-13's minutes were elevated. I like that. They lifted the cap. We'll talk about Drummond. Thompson's out, and Drummond's been playing 30-something minutes, so I'm with you on that. And we obviously talked about Harden and Westbrook already. Matt Runyon scored 320 with Middleton and Lopez on FanDuel. Matt, that's a bummer, man. I mean, it's positive that you scored 320 because everything else you were on was right, but man, that's a bummer. You know, we cover FanDuel. I played when I first started playing DFS. FanDuel was the site that I started with. And so I don't want to speak poorly of them or say you shouldn't play them or nothing like that because I do think their product is decent. It's fun. In some cases, I think it's easier. And if you don't have time if you don't have time, like late swap would actually hurt you because you don't have the time to make the adjustments and everybody else does. Boy, get out of there, boy. Messing up my green screen. Ah, damn, this big ass dog just went over there and just laid down on my shit, unplugged my laptop, everything. Just damn, man, no reserve. You have no idea how big he is, little baby. He's a little baby though. All right, but yeah, Matt, it's tough. Like I said, I'd never tell anyone not to play FanDuel, but me personally, if I didn't have the time to do the late swap, because I wouldn't want anyone to have an edge and be able to switch when I couldn't. But being that I do have the time to do it, because this is what I do. I just can't. Like, listen, playing on FanDuel, so I do play on FanDuel occasionally with like a secondary role when I have some extra and I want to get a little different, but I just can't deal with that late swap shit, man. That sucks. Not having it, I mean. Arizona Drama, LeVert or DeRozan or Booker? Yeah, that's a tough question, man. That's a really tough question. LeVert's in a phenomenal spot. His price has come down. DeRozan, I think, is in an elevated spot and could be. I'm curious to see what his ownership ends up being. And then, of course, there's Booker, who's playing 40 minutes a game and playing well. So, some decisions to make. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Let's go on to the next game, which is the Cleveland Cavaliers visiting the Chicago Bulls. We have a 215.5 total, down from 217.5. So, the total on not exactly all that attractive. The Bulls actually 3.5 point favorites. You don't see them favorited very often, especially with no Levine. Both teams working with a day off. It is a 3-4 for Cleveland. Chicago's had a day off. It's pretty standard in general. Starting with the Cleveland side, Dellavedova's been playing monster minutes. No reason to think he wouldn't see those minutes again. In their last game, I think he got like 40-plus minutes, which helped him get to where he had to go. So as long as Garland is still out, which he is, and Porter is still out, and they have all these injuries, I would assume that Delly's going to continue to play massive minutes. It doesn't mean, and we have other options today. Patty Mills is cheaper than him. Derek White is a little more expensive, but a little more active than him typically. But Dellavedova's assist rate have been phenomenal. Colin Sexton, a fine mid-tier play once again, playing minutes somewhere between 39 and 42 a game, and that's not really going to stop. Andre Drummond against Chicago, phenomenal spot. His price not as high as it should be because people have been reluctant because of his minutes, but he's played over 30 minutes in 2 straight games, 36 in the one in his first game back, 33 in the second, and now Thompson we know is out, so we'll have Larry Nance, I think, working around there between backing up Kevin Love and backing up Drummond, playing a ton of minutes. Kevin Love's minutes have been awesome. They've been through the roof. On FanDuel, the Cleveland team, and you can play everybody on Cleveland. On DraftKings, you probably could too, but the projection doesn't look as pretty. But you can see we got a lot of players that are projecting positively over the 5.5 mark, which is what we look for on DraftKings to consider it a decent tournament play. And guys looking excellent on DraftKings. So Cleveland, once again, going to play a ton of minutes. The pace of this game may not be pretty. Chicago is not fast. Chicago did make a change to their lineup, taking out Satoransky, replacing him with Kobe White. So there's a few moving pieces on the Chicago side that could change things defensively and everything else. But I do like the Cleveland side. Pretty much all the Cleveland except for McKinney. I'm just not interested in McKinney. But from Dellavedova through Osman, I have strong interest in Cleveland. Osman probably the least on DraftKings because his price is elevated. But you can't. They're playing huge minutes. They're thin. They don't want to play these guys like Wade, Dean Wade. They don't want to play these ancillary players. Ante Zizic, they're not trying to play them. They're taking their regular guys and they're just running them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players we have projected for minutes here because of Porter and Thompson's injury. 7 players projected for minutes. So that tells you that the starting 5 with the 6th man of Larry Nance is going to play a ton. So yeah, once again, I'll be playing a lot of Cleveland. If they're going to continue to get all these minutes, I'm going to do it. And we have value, so if people start going stars and scrubsy, the Cleveland side can end up being a contrarian little stack, which will force you more balance. So a couple things to consider depending on what projected ownership we end up looking at tonight. On the Bulls side, I think Wendell Carter is a decent value play. He's done well against Drummond in the past, and Wendell Carter's minutes have been elevated. Let me see if I could pull that up for you guys. He's been playing in his last game. I think I want to say he got like 28 or something like that. But they've been pretty quick to elevate him. Obviously, it's been a slow process, but they've been increasing him every time. So yeah, he's gotten. When did he come back? So he 18 his first game, 23 his second, 25 his third, 26 his fourth, and then 28 against Brooklyn. So he hasn't played all that well. But this is a spot where they're going to need some size on the court against Drummond. So I do think that Wendell Carter. We have him at 28 minutes, which he projects well for, but he could get 30 minutes or more. It's just going to matter on how well he plays. Shaq Harrison has been a guy that we've gotten burned by so many times, just thinking that they're going to play him and the team deciding not to play him. But his last 2 games, he's gotten monster minutes. 36 minutes against Brooklyn, 34 minutes against the Pacers, 29 minutes against Minnesota. So I'm willing to go back. I'm willing to get some. He's been active while he's on the court. He's taking shots. Obviously, he's a really good defender. 3 steals, 4 steals in each of his last 3 games. Got a couple blocks along the way. He's grabbing some boards, getting a couple assists. So the question is minutes. Are they going to give him the minutes that we think he's going to get? If he's going to get the minutes, he's good. Fire away. If he's not, obviously that puts us in a position. So someone to consider, I think. I like Kobe White a ton. He's going to be starting. I think he's going to get like 38 minutes. We know Cleveland struggled against point guards. Another mid-tier play. I'm hoping his ownership ends up going somewhat low because of his price, but I'm definitely willing to go back. We've seen this guy go for 40s pretty often in this particular role, which would be plenty for his price on either side. So I'm definitely interested. Lauri Markkanen, for a low total game, I got a lot interested in this game. I know that the total is really low, but I'm still interested because I think that the usage rates and where guys are is just really good, especially on the Cleveland side. Denzel Valentine's price has come up on DraftKings. I don't mind him on FanDuel, but on DraftKings at 5-1, it's kind of tough to pull the trigger. They've still been inconsistent with his minutes. Lauri Markkanen's gotten decent minutes. Otto Porter played really well off the bench in his last game, though he's still on a minutes limit. So there's some options to work with. Cleveland is a horrible defensive team. But I am interested in Kobe White in that mid-tier. Shaq Harrison as that borderline value, and then Wendell Carter for actual value if you want to consider that. But this game is definitely game stackable. I mean, Cleveland alone is going to. We know they're going to have some really tight rotations, and their guys are going to play monster minutes, which is really all we could ask for at DFS. That's what we're looking for, heavy, real heavy. So don't waste it. Don't waste it. Next up, we've got the Phoenix Suns visiting the Portland Trailblazers. We have a 232.5 total, down from 233.5. These teams did just play recently. The Suns have had a day off. Portland's had 2 days off, so that's nice for them. Starting with the Sun side, Devin Booker, his price has been elevated on DraftKings, but we know he's going to play monster minutes. Waiting on the status for DeAndre Ayton. If Ayton is in, we can definitely consider him, assuming he's going to get his full run of minutes. Ricky Rubio, if Ayton is in, I'm not as interested in, even though I think it helps with the correlation. I just think that Ayton's going to take away too many shots for Rubio. Mikal Bridges, I don't see why he wouldn't continue to play 38 to 40 minutes, though his projection not looking so great at his price. If Ayton is back, that will affect the minutes of Dario Saric, I think. Also, obviously, Aaron Baines. So if Ayton is in, I like him. If he is out, Aaron Baines should be pretty popular again. This is the game he went for 60 or something like that against. He did it against Whiteside, so I see no reason people wouldn't assume he's going to do it again. So this is a game that we're going to have to check back later. Hopefully we get some of that news and we can make some moves. But if we get past lock and they still haven't announced the Ayton status, then on DraftKings you have an opportunity to late swap him in at lower ownership. On FanDuel, once again, you'd have to take that risk, which would be very scary. But because if Ayton does play, Baines will play, but he's not going to play nearly as much that you would need him to really smash. So a situation we have to monitor, come back and take a look depending on the injury news. On the Portland side of the ball, Dame's price is low, man. I mean, he could really do work, but since coming back from his injury, we haven't really seen him kind of take charge. Maybe they do it now. It's a good matchup against Rubio. I think they could really use him stepping up. His price is way too cheap for the role he was giving us. He was going for 50s, 60s, and 70s regularly before his injury, playing 38 to 40-something minutes. So a guy that we're going to want to get exposure to if we feel comfortable, but that's just really going to be a matter of your tolerance, where you're at. I'm probably going to have some at these prices. I'm not going to ignore them. Hassan Whiteside smashed, I believe, also against these guys. Let's just make sure. Either way, it's been a smash party for him. He played 40 minutes against Phoenix last time out. 20 rebounds. That was without Ayton. I don't think Ayton's going to make that much of a difference. And he's in the exact same spot, Smashburger spot here, going up against Phoenix once again, who's been one of the worst teams against big. So I'm good with Whiteside as a spend up. The rest of these guys, Melo, CJ, Ariza, all probably more game stack pieces for me just because we have stronger plays at their positions and around their pricing. But obviously, a situation worth monitoring. But, I mean, listen, I was conservative with Dame's minute project. If I project Dame for 38 minutes like we usually do, he's going to be popping off the charts. The issue, of course, has not really been the minutes. 33 minutes against Sacramento, 38 against Phoenix. It's been the usage. We want him to have that 39, 37 type usage. It's been more like 23, 27. So he's kind of gradually increasing. He did take 10 threes against the Kings. Only made 2 of them. But the fact that he took the 10 threes shows you that the upside could be there. So we'd like to see him be more aggressive. But we don't want to miss the boat, because when he does, his price is too low and he can just go nuts. That's kind of how I feel. What we got? 2 games left? 2 games left. Let me pop in here real quick. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Arizona drama. Kobe White finally getting the start for Chicago. I like him as well. Our boy Tenelson. What up? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Good to see everybody in here. I'm glad you guys are hanging out. I know the crowd's been a little light on these early looks. I mean, the views have been getting there later on in the day. I guess it's just the time of day thing, but they've been a little light. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Let's keep it rolling. We got 2 more games, and then my ass is going to the gym because I need to lift some weights. All right. Los Angeles Clippers visiting the Golden State Warriors. We have a 226.5 total. The Clippers are currently 11.5 point favorites. The Clippers have had 1 day off. Golden State has had 2 days off. On the Clippers side, Marcus Morris continues to project well because of his price, but his role is just so minuscule. I'm not willing to do it on a slate this large. Maybe on a small slate when his price got low enough, we could take a chance, because it's not like he can't get there. But in the meantime, from what we've seen, it's just not enough. Paul George, I'm with you. I know some of you liked him. The blowout is a concern here. The Clippers are a very good team. Golden State is not. So the blowout's a concern. If Steph Curry's playing, I'd be more interested, or at least I'd have more higher hopes it would stay close. But PG played 33 minutes in his last game and went nuts. I think he's back as far as the minutes limit goes. Him and Kawhi, you know what they are. It's hard to take shots on Lou Williams. Even a guy like Montrezl Harrell, who played over 30 minutes in his last game, because they are so deep now that they don't have to play anyone. They could play whoever they want to play when they want to play them. They can go without a center at all. So it's tough to really take some stands. It's really just Paul George. On a small slate, I would dig and I would find something to like. I don't mind if you want to take a shot on Lou Will and these guys, but I do think we have strong plays across the board because of the slate size. I just don't see myself needing some of these pieces, but I think that Paul George and Kawhi are always worth considering as spend-ups, and Paul George still cheap for the upside. I think it does make sense. The Golden State side is actually the side that's pretty thin. We're expecting Draymond Green to be out again. Andrew Wiggins is playing monster minutes, been a little inconsistent. If Steph Curry is out, I will like Wiggins a little bit more. If Steph Curry's in, I like Steph Curry. His price has come down. He played 28 minutes in that first game, so I see no reason they wouldn't elevate him to 30. Now, he's questionable with an illness, which can obviously mess everything up. But I'm interested there. I'm also interested in Marquise Chris simply because the Clippers have been terrible against bigs. And Marquise Chris has played well in this role. He's been their starter. He's earned it. He's gotten really good minutes, and he's played phenomenally. So I think the price is still too soft for Marquise Chris, my favorite Warrior, no doubt. After that, we can take shots on guys like Paschal. Michael Mulder's been playing a lot of minutes, doesn't really project well. Jordan Poole's minutes have been down, which is a little strange. But Damian Lee would probably be your next best option, being that he has been getting a solid minute workload. He's averaging around 30 DraftKings points over his last few games. So I'm interested there, but it's Steph Curry and Marquise Chris are the main two, with Andrew Wiggins as like a close third. Kind of lagging behind, but Wiggins has been playing a little bit. I may have Wiggins minutes. I may raise his minutes because he's been playing a lot of minutes lately. That's not been an issue. I guess they're trying to really see what him and Steph could do. Last game, and then we're out of here, ladies and gents. We got the Brooklyn Nets visiting the Los Angeles Lakers. We have a 222 total. The Lakers opened up -12. They're down to -10.5. Both teams are working with 1 day rest. So starting with the Brooklyn side, Tarean Prince, his price has gotten really low on DraftKings to a point where we may have to take a hard look. DeAndre Jordan started in Brooklyn's last game. If he starts again, I will definitely be willing to play DeAndre Jordan, who got 29 minutes in that game. Spencer Dinwiddie, they finally played him over 30 minutes. If that's going to be the case, his price is probably too low. I'm definitely interested in it. Obviously, we have interest in Karis LeVert, who's been getting minutes and just balling with no Kyrie, really just emerging. This is the Karis LeVert we were waiting for. This is the Karis LeVert that we knew he was. It's almost a shame they got Kyrie because it really, really like stopped LeVert from doing dirties. Now, granted, I know he was dealing with some injuries himself, but LeVert, Dinwiddie, and then after that, if DeAndre Jordan starts, I'm good with him. Tarean Prince for value. I'm not really messing with too much else unless there's something crazy we see in the starting lineup, which we probably won't happen until after lock. But I think, listen, late night hammer, right? Late night hammer. No, it's not necessarily late night hammer because them and the Clippers both start at this time. But I'm interested on the Brooklyn Nets side for sure. Dinwiddie, LeVert would be my main two. LeVert is obviously easier to roll with because he's been a beast. But Dinwiddie's price is down, and again, he did get the minutes in the last game, which is he's been missing over the prior games before that. So this could be a bounce back spot, and we'll want to check and see if DeAndre Jordan is going to continue to start. On the Lakers side, LeBron James is questionable. If they play, him and AD are both in phenomenal spots. I'll have more Anthony Davis simply because he's cheaper on DraftKings, a lot easier to reach. Therefore, he projects a lot better on a point per dollar level. If LeBron is out, then obviously AD becomes the optimal play and will be chalk at that point unless it happens after lock. Other than that, I'm not messing around with these ancillary pieces. I need a guy to give me AD out or LeBron out. They're both technically questionable. I think AD is probable. LeBron's questionable with a sore groin. So groin injury ain't nothing to fuck with. He may actually sit. So keep that in mind. If that happens, obviously Rajon Rondo becomes a top value play on the slate. We'd have to look at JaVale McGee and or what's his name? Dwight Howard. Kyle Kuzma would become a phenomenal value play. So things to pay attention to. I kind of think he may sit, but I think they'll both play. And if that's the case, I lean towards Anthony Davis regardless. But obviously, at this point, it's like, okay, 35% Davis be overweight. Hypothetically, if that's what you're thinking. If Anthony Davis were to be playing without LeBron, you'd be looking at more 60, 70, maybe even 80% at the price of 9.8. On FanDuel, similar story. I expect LeBron to be a little bit more popular, even though AD projects better and is a little bit cheaper. It's just a position issue. Small forward, always a tougher position than power forward in general. So that's kind of how I would expect it to go. But definitely an interesting game. I'm gonna want some pieces of no doubt. Chat. Christina has a question for you, chat. Gordon or Randall? They want to know from y'all. Gordon or Randall? Get him. So Nelson says, I love Chris, but on FanDuel, going to be hard to get off Drummond. Absolutely. Drummond's probably, what is he, 8-2 over there? Ridiculously low. Just ridiculously low. Against Chicago? That is tough to pass up on. No doubt about it. But anyway, Nation, hit that like button if you haven't already. I'm going to get up out of here. We'll be back. Don't miss our flagship show, the NBA Wire Stream, our final look, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern today. The first hour will be a game-by-game with me. Hopefully, we have some news at that point. We make some updates to these projections and kind of revisit the game-by-game and see what's changed, see where opinions have changed. And then, of course, the second hour, we bring on Paulie D, talk some game theory, get Paulie's take, try to answer more questions. But more importantly, the point of the Wise Stream later in the second hour is to keep you guys informed with all the news, to make sure you have as much information as you can, necessary information to be able to react accordingly. NBA DFS is definitely a reactionary sport. A reactionary game. We get news. How you react determines, it goes a long way with the skill of it. So appreciate hanging out with y'all. I appreciate those of you participating. Trying to figure out a more steady schedule so you guys can expect when we are going live. Obviously, we always try to post it the morning of on our YouTube channel, so always check there first. But I am trying to come up with something a little bit more consistent for y'all, so y'all know when to expect us, I guess. But you know what? We need more likes. YouTube's not pushing us, bro. That's the truth. YouTube is not pushing our shit. We've been here for years. This is what, a third, fourth year doing this, and obviously. You got to learn with some of the SEO stuff and how YouTube search engines go. But YouTube's not even pushing us. So it's up to y'all to push us. It's up to y'all to let the word out on the nation. It's up to y'all to hit the like button and encourage others to hit that like button and to share this shit on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. I need y'all's help because YouTube ain't doing it for us. YouTube ain't doing this for us. They're not hooking us up. Even though we know we have a top-notch product. We know we do. We've got results. We have members that have been with us since day one for years. Everybody, all these people come into the game, open up their own little companies, communities, and we've had people leave us for other communities and come back. Try it for yourself if you want to, WiseTake.com. But in the very least, help us out. For those of you that take advantage of the free content, we appreciate y'all too. Y'all are still members of the nation. And, help spread the message. Help spread the message. We'll see y'all for the flagship show. I'm getting out of here. Hit that like button. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.